Okay, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, in the name of Allah, most compassionate, most merciful. We always remind ourselves, so it keeps us humble and thankful and grateful. Because my friend Andy would tell you that the best way to overcome your fatigue, your burnout, is to remember that there is one on whom we rely. And unfortunately in English, I always have to refer to God as Him. But in our language, Allah has no gender. Okay? So to the deity up there, thank you. But in our tradition, the Prophet has said, you have to thank people before you thank the Creator. So there are few in this room who have silently helped me along the way. It's never, ever one person. Okay, young people, remember that. It's always a team. You may hear one name, but it doesn't mean that that person stands alone, because none of us can. So one person who so tirelessly, one email, and Paul is here. So, thank you. Yeah. See, I'm now 62, so I can give a hug. Oh, yeah. I'm a grandmother. Everything has been recorded on his volunteer time. Only in Winnipeg, guys. There is another young person who was introduced to me via email by Independent Jewish Voices, who said, she's an expert on Conversation Cafe. Just email her, she will volunteer her time. And she did, Emily. I'm looking at the names because I'll forget. Okay. And of course, where will we all be without my nephew, Terry? He's earned the privilege to call me auntie. And I know I don't see the person here. Okay. It'll come to me, as I told you my age, so it's a senior moment. But I do want to recognize our funders, because without that, it wouldn't have happened. And really, when I began planning this, I didn't know anyone was going to come on board, but I asked the Creator and he provided. So Canadian Heritage, our federal funder, Natasha, thank you. Our provincial, the minister was here yesterday. I could not say thank you to her because the official yes hadn't come. It came over phone after lunch yesterday. So, you know, bureaucracy. So Multicultural Secretariat, we do have their thing up there, so thank you. And you know, all the students who are here, who were sponsored, thank you, the Winnipeg Foundation. They covered the cost of all of them. And of course, my other nephew, Hamoudi El-Tasi, his Sergeant Blue Jeans, covered the extra coffee that we had to have, okay? And the Citizenship Equity Committee, who I didn't even ask, they offered. This is how the miracles happen. So thank you, all of you, for your generosity and for your support. I will end with a story that I want to share with all of you, because I didn't intend to speak at this conference. I speak 3 times a day, on average, to different organizations. Some of you may have, few of you may have heard this. About 10 to 15 years ago, I was on a flight. I travel a lot speaking at And I was invited to Windsor to give a talk. We had started Islamic Social Services there, and they had the 10th anniversary, so they wanted to bring me back. And on the flight, it was a 5 o'clock morning flight to Windsor, which is never a direct flight from Winnipeg. I'm tired, and I said, I'm going to sleep. This is my time to sleep. And there was this older gentleman sitting beside me who decided, looking at my hijab, "You're Muslim?" I said, "Yeah," and had 101 questions. I was not in the mood, and I kept trying to, yeah. And finally I said, "Okay, Allah, you're sending me a message, fine." I got up, stood straight, and said, "Okay, what are your questions?" The whole flight, he had questions about Islam and Muslims. As we were leaving, we stood up, and he said, he's a veteran of the Second World War. And he said to me, he said, "Make me a promise before you leave this flight. I don't know if I will see you again." And I said, "What is it?" He said, "Promise me that you will stand on God for the 7 freedoms that Canada is based on." And I just looked at him and I said, "I promise." And when I went to the event where there were 500 people and I was speaking to them, I told that story. It's so fresh in my mind. And I don't know if I was disappointed or surprised. Everybody was very happy to hear that. But there were politicians, federal, provincial, you name it, at that gathering, and they came to me with their notepads asking, "Oh, we got the 1 and the 2, it was the 3, what's the 4th, what's the 5th? And I was just like, oh, I understood what that man had told me. I didn't look like him, right? We didn't have the same color skin. We didn't have the same faith. I was an immigrant. He almost gave his life for this country. And he was asking me to stand up for the 7 freedoms. That's what Canada is. And I remembered then that after 9/11, when I had done 72 interviews in 48 hours, national, local, I hadn't eaten for 72 hours. Because my husband would come and give me juice quickly to get me going, because there were only 5 or 6 across North America who were doing what I was doing. And we were editing statements from US organizations and Muslim organizations in Canada. It was nonstop. And I noticed that wherever I went, there was this one indigenous elder, Gladys Cook, who was always there. And I lost touch with her a few years later. And then a couple of years back, 3, 4 years back, I was speaking at a palliative care conference, and I saw Gladys, and she was there in a wheelchair, and I couldn't wait to get off the stage so I could go hug her, and I said, "Gladys, where have you been?" And we talked, and she told me about how her daughter had passed away and of cancer, and why she was in a wheelchair herself. And we cried and we hugged, and she said, "But Shahina, don't forget, even though you may not see me, I say a prayer every day for you." And I said, "What's that, Gladys?" And she said, "I pray that anyone who wishes you harm, may they never succeed." This was an indigenous elder saying that to me. I knew that time that I was home. I didn't choose Canada. I didn't choose Winnipeg. Winnipeg chose me. It was chosen for me. So all of you remember that one person, when they commit, as you have seen the example today of so many of you, all of you, who when you commit, doors open, windows open, help comes. You have to be that unifying force so that others will pray for you and others will ask you to stand for them even though they are different from you. That's the goal the humanity should have and will have, inshallah. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming. I hope you stay for the last conversation cafe, because that's my dream, that out of this gathering, we can have a toolkit, you want to call it, whatever you want to call it, that every community, every cultural and faith community will know how to organize, right? How to stand together, how to respond to hate speech, to hate crime, not against themselves, but the other, in the positive sense, right, Terry? Andy, so I want this conversation to tell us what we can put in there, right? And Kate and Social Planning Council has, again, volunteered to put this together. They will put a student in charge of that. So that's where we need your input. We need our young people, when our generation passes, to know what's a rally, what's a vigil, what's a protest. Who do you invite to what? How do you behave? Everything should not be about political slogans. Our rally should be about bringing communities together. Our vigil should be about respect, right? So this is what we want to put so that when our generation passes, we have left something for them, right, Krishna? Yeah. And he's going to take 2 young people as interns, all the students here, take it back in graphic design on how you speak. Okay, and I've already recruited Sunita. She's coming back in the fold, in the activist fold. She had gone away for a while. So thank you, Sunita. So the team is regrouping because we have a huge challenge ahead of us. And Lori and Kate, you guys are amazing. You know what, how many emails I sent to these 2 people constantly saying, help her. Kate, I forgot. Her gift is right there. Can you get it out? See? Seniors moment is back. And I want to thank my brother Imam Patel, who came all the way from Toronto just to attend this conference. I want to thank my friend Andy. We had been email friends. The pen pals is an old term, right? We age ourselves. Email friends. Karen, of course. Do you know you're the first person when I took the idea to you said, yeah, sure, we'll help, right? And so that gave me the courage to go forward. So, you know, create to provide. So thank you, everyone. And Terry, you are amazing. And I'm going to cook a meal for you that you will never forget. So, thank you, everyone.
And storytelling, and education, vigilance, bridge building, listening, really listening, faith, optimism, change, defending those who can't defend themselves, being loving, and being generous. That's my little list. You may well have your own. But those are things that I'm left with over these last few days. And it's been a very moving experience for me, and I expect it may well have been for you too. I didn't know what to expect coming into this. I just volunteered, as so many people did, because Shahina said, would you like to come and help? And I said, sure. I knew I'd be seeing people that I had known before, learned a lot from. There were many that I didn't know at all and didn't expect to ever encounter, and I was really quite profoundly moved by, in a certain way, the range of the horrors of discrimination and racism that I heard here. The personal accounts from those of you who spoke here to talk about what it was like for you growing up, what it's like for you now, what it's like being stopped in the street, what it's like having your purse searched in a department store, what it's like to be suspect because you're the person with the darker skin. I have a lot to learn. I'm a privileged, well-educated white person who has a great deal left to learn. I'm part of a scale. And I'm now anticipating my second session at the Grand Mosque on Waverley in the Introduction to Islam. And it was a very surprising exploration that happened last Saturday. I'm looking forward to next Saturday, but I want to say how grateful I am to all of you who are prepared to tell me a whole lot more and to invite me into the community of so many of us here, indigenous, non-indigenous, Muslim, Christian, United Church, all sorts of people who are here with the same purpose in mind. So thank you very much for being part of this. Thanks for doing what you do. Let's be fierce and let's be loving. Thanks.